the scientific method, as they saw the problems, as they built a tremendous place for them to demonstrate this, a terrain, and then when it didn't work, to go back to their computers, fix it, understand that science is a process of correction and following a particular procedure. These are little kids, and I am amazed to watch them. And the fact that we have the ability on our bases to really inspire young children to follow science and technology and mathematics and engineering at this very young age never would have been exposed to this. And we know how critical, but by the 4th grade, students begin to lose interest in science and technology. And if they come from environments where they're not exposed to this, it is really through, I think, this call by the Department of Defense to really promote science technology as a national issue, defense issue, and I'm just really pleased to be here. I cannot think of a better use of $30 million, and I want to thank the committee and the chairman last year for putting it back into the budget. I hope you will do the same. This is a great, great program at a fraction of the cost, and you can see also, like on my base, how excited those volunteers are to teach these kids, because they feel like they're doing something for their country. They're educators frequently. I have lots of Army Reserve and National Guard folks, and they feel like they're really promoting, they're coming on the base and doing what's so important for the nation, and they can provide these young children experiences that they can't get in public educational schools because they don't have the ability to use the computerized setting. They have 3D printers. We built rockets one day. Can you imagine 5th graders building rockets? It's just a great program.
Mr. Lowenthal, thank you very much for your advocacy. We certainly know over the years that they've built things other than rockets.
Well,
and I'm glad they're doing it. And as you're aware, this when the president's budget comes over, the last couple of years it's been absent this STAR program. I can assure you that we will put the money back. It's something which is very important, I think, to all of our members of Congress, regardless of political affiliation. And I think the proof is in the pudding.
And I actually have some test scores to indicate how our 5th graders have improved on both the pre and post tests we've done, and also now on the academic performance index too. And so I just think that I want to thank the committee. You've been great for putting it back in on both sides of the aisle, and I just think it's a wonderful use of a very small amount of money.
Well, it's a national program and a congressional ad that I think we can strongly support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
Pleased to recognize one of our colleagues from the Appropriations Committee, Congressman David Jolly. David, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Visclosky. Thank you for the opportunity to touch this morning just very quickly on 3 programs, each of which have been submitted either through written testimony or through the member request process. And I also want to thank the professional staff for their assistance throughout this process. The 3 I want to touch on this morning, though, one is a very small but very successful Navy program that began through the SBIR process. The Navy has continued to invest in, and believe it or not, it's actually a program that did receive a Rapid Innovation Award in recent years. It's a radar and electronic system alignment tool that has now been fully deployed on Aegis-class cruisers and destroyers, replacing what used to be a man-based system to repair down radar, down electronic systems over a period of days using paper-based manuals. This is simply an electronic radar alignment tool that went through the R&D process, is now being fully deployed with Aegis. My request to the committee today, though, is that the Rapid Innovation Award money that was awarded in the last 18 months actually was awarded to transition this technology to LCS, which is really where this capability fits in terms of the LCS platform, reduced manpower, improved readiness. It is a lightweight, efficient, low-cost tool that actually does solve manpower needs as well as readiness. My concern is, because there was a Rapid Innovation Award for this technology, awarded to, frankly, a single technology company, being able to sustain that technology investment going forward, my ask of the committee would simply be to work with the LCS office to make sure sufficient resources are there to continue the investment in this technology as it is transitioned to LCS. The second is somewhat a regional issue, but also one of national importance, and that is the SOCOM S&T portfolio. In the Tampa Bay area, this is something that I see the impact of SOCOM S&T, not just for the warfighter, but also throughout the industry partners that support the warfighter. I also have personal relationships within the acquisition office there in S&T. I know the good work that they do. I know the innovation that they bring to the portfolio. And we all know the importance of keeping the SOF community within the SOF lanes, but allowing them to address SOF unique needs. And I think continued investment, robust investment in SOCOM S&T is critical to that. The last one is really one that is easy, I believe, for everybody in this room, but personal for so many, and it's a program that started in this room by my predecessor and your colleague, Bill Young, and that's the C.W. Bill Young Department of Defense Bone Marrow Program. That was begun in this room by this committee. That was continued by this committee. We have 800,000 members of the armed forces that are registered in the program, having provided over 10,000 donations, life-saving donations already. It obviously is a program that requires the continued support of this subcommittee to ensure its success. So I would ask for your consideration of that, as well as the continued investment in medical research that uniquely comes through this committee. I mean, this subcommittee has led the way in medical research areas that other subcommittees have not been able to do, from wound healing to disease-specific accounts or programs, and I would ask for continued investment in that. I appreciate the time this morning. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The committee would like to thank Mr. Jolly for his advocacy in a number of areas, the areas that you've mentioned this morning, as well as other important aspects to our committee. Considering the size of our Navy, which is probably the smallest it's ever been, we need to make sure that our Navy has every capability. So you're bringing this issue of this extra technology, which makes the existing program even more worthwhile and capable, is important for us to be aware of that, and we certainly will consider that. As to, and when you talk about science and technology, those are the initials, just to break them down. Those types of investments for the special operations community, considering what the burden that has been and responsibility that's been placed on them by our Commander-in-Chief and by members of Congress to do some exceptionally difficult tasks around the world, often unheralded and not well known. So certainly that's an aspect of our work that I think historically we've been supportive of, but it's good to have some greater advocacy for that as well. And lastly, just being in this room for Mr. Visklowski and all of us who work on behalf of the committee, the staff, one of the most remarkable things about my predecessor, and actually your predecessor, the late Congressman Bill Young, was his advocacy for this bone marrow program and the science that's come from that program, besides the whole issue of bone marrow, has been transported into other parts of defense, healthcare, support, and into the private sector in ways perhaps you know better than most of us. We had quite a long hearing, 2.5 hours yesterday, with the Surgeon Generals, one of whom, Admiral Nathan, worked particularly close with Congressman, former Chairman Bill Young, and I think he was one of those who was a very strong advocate and supporter of the bone marrow registry program. So we'll be supportive of it, knowing that it helps a lot of those in military life as well as obviously in civilian life. Mr. Visklowski.
Sure. One, I just appreciate your participation on the committee, and in reference to Mr. Young, I think all of us are here because we had wonderful families and great mentors. And I continue to recollect a question I received from a middle school student a couple of years ago, and she got a gold star because I had never been asked that question in 30 years. And she says, which member of Congress do you deal with the most? And I said, oh, that's easy. Bill Young, he's a Republican from Florida. And normally I would never addendum the Republican part, but I have a reasonably Democratic district. And it led to a wonderful discussion. Is that contrary to what people see on the institution, they're very serious, decent people trying to move this country forward, and certainly you're following in his footsteps. So appreciate your concern and your participation today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And space issues. As a representative for the 33rd Congressional District, I work in both military and civilian capacities with LA Air Force Base and the Space and Missile Systems Center. And surrounding the base is an incredible array of institutions and research facilities and defense companies. And co-located with the base is a production line for the F-18 fuselage, which is a program I'm here to testify about today, which is the F-18 program. I'd like to add my strong support for the program as you consider the fiscal year 2016 Defense Appropriations Bill. This program has an estimated annual impact of $1 billion throughout California, 40% of which is in my district. And from a national security perspective, the program is at a critical pivot point as the Navy considers its warfighting requirements and the strength of its aviation fleet. As you know, the F-18 has provided the Navy with two unique and essential aircraft for our nation's warfighter, the F-18 Super Hornet and the EA-18G Growler. The Super Hornet remains the Navy's premier operational strike fighter, flying from 4 deployed aircraft carriers. These aircraft flew the first missions against the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, and they serve as a workhorse of naval aviation for all missions and all threat environments. With a plan to be part of the fleet until 2040 at least, the Super Hornet is a key component of the Navy's aviation plan for the next 3 decades. And additionally, the Growler is the DoD's proven airborne electronic attack asset, and it provides jamming not just for the Navy, but for all the services. And the Growler is truly a national asset and the department's only resource for airborne electronic attack. And as you know, in a time when control of the electromagnetic spectrum is important, it's a key discriminator for battle. Unfortunately, the fiscal year 2016 budget does not include funding for the continued production of either the Super Hornet or the Growler. After the budget submission, the Navy added 12 F-model Super Hornets to its unfunded priority request, highlighting that it does not have a sufficient amount of aircraft in its inventory. And the most immediate challenge is if the F-18 confronts right now is that they may need a closed production line if they can't keep building these F-18 fighters, and we're going to need these well into the future. And so with that, I would love you to consider these 12 aircraft, and thank you so much for listening to my testimony today.
So Lou, thank you for being with us. Obviously, the F-18 in all of its capabilities, we're certainly supportive of the program, and your advocacy here today reinforces that. I want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and I'll submit my written testimony as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Stosky.
No, yes, sir.
Okay. Pleased to welcome Congressman Denny Heck from Washington State. Thank you very much for being with us. We got off to an early start, but we're very glad to have you here.
Thank you, Chairman Freeling-Heising and Ranking Member Visclosky. The honor is indeed all mine, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to testify here today about some of our national defense priorities very much. I have the honor to represent Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is, as you know, is one of the largest military installations in America. It is in the vicinity of Interstate 5. In fact, it straddles it. And this highway is the most heavily traveled north-south freight corridor in the entire state of Washington. It carries in excess of 145,000 vehicles every day. Nearly 80% of the traffic to and from JBLM needs and relies on Interstate 5. Local travelers in neighboring cities have no other option except to use I-5 as its surface street. When incidents occur, it can take hours to recover. Backups of 6 miles or more beginning at 6 a.m. are frankly not rare, they're almost the norm. This just isn't happening in my district. It's not singular to the 10th Congressional District of Washington State issue. Floridians are stuck on Florida State Route 85, and we all know that people here in the Beltway are stuck on Interstate 95, 395, 495, and the almost daily question has become, what's the holdup? The truth is military installations are still adapting to base realignment and short-term growth caused by troops passing through before being deployed. Installation growth has had a significant effect on regional transportation, particularly when an installation is located in or near an urban area. Even acknowledging the potential for drawdowns on military bases, those reductions would not nearly come close to alleviating the problem. Surrounding roads, and this is key, play an important role in preserving military readiness. Our armed forces need to instantly deploy, and we need functional roads in order for that to happen. If military personnel are caught in a jam, efficiency goes out the door, and the domino effect of delays due to congestion literally impairs our national security. This leaves not only military activities on bases stranded, but also commerce in the community stranded as well. When we don't have reliable roadways, economic activity comes to a screeching halt, literally and figuratively. Goods can't move, companies lose money. The cascading inaction affects productivity and balance sheets, and it puts strains on business and workers alike. To be clear, the military is not to blame for this. In fact, based on the direction of this committee, they've done a lot to help mitigate the problem. They know the opportunity cost involved when their soldiers and civilian workers are stuck in traffic and can't be where they need to be. Bases have come up with innovative approaches to ease the pain, but the problem remains severe and unavoidable without more investment. It is a Band-Aid over a wound that needs stitches. Let's heal this mess by upgrading the transportation infrastructure around these bases as a part of the FY16 Defense Appropriations Bill. And in that regard, sir, I respectfully request that the 2016 bill provide $25 million in appropriated funds for transportation infrastructure improvements associated with congestion mitigation in urban areas related to the 2005 BRAC recommendations. As you may recall, there is precedent. The Defense Appropriations Bill for 2011 appropriated $300 million just for these purposes, and those funds were expended through the Office of Economic Adjustment. Mr. Chairman, while I've been sitting here with you this morning talking, people that were in gridlock when I began probably haven't budged an inch. They're already late for work or their assignment on base. They might still be in gridlock even when this hearing ends. Every one of us is all too familiar with the feeling, the horrible feeling of approaching an unexpected slow crawl. I know that feeling very well as I approach Joint Base Lewis McChord. We can do better, and we can do more. Finally, I'd just like to thank this committee. I was here almost exactly a year ago, and I asked for your help to finish school construction on bases where they were dilapidated. Within a few months, we will break ground on Joint Base Lewis McChord to build a new elementary school that serves predominantly special needs students. You did that. On behalf of my community and the parents of those children, I thank you very much. And with equal fervor, I urge you to favorably consider the request I brought for you today. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Heck, and thank you for remembering that. And I do remember you coming before the committee last year and telling us what a deplorable situation the schools were in. I mean, that's not the sort of optic we want to have identify with the education facilities of some very key young people. Let me say the committee is we don't believe in gridlock here. We actually, as you say, we get some things done, and we're highly appreciative of your advocacy. First of all, let me salute the good work of the Joint Base, Lewis McChord. I have been on Interstate 5, and it is congested. It's been a few years since I've been out there, but let me salute the work, the men and the women who come out of that Joint Base that have done so much to protect our freedoms around the world. And we will take under consideration your request for $25 million to see what we can do to maybe make the infrastructure assure better access for the surrounding communities as well as people onto the Joint Base.
Thank you, sir. Joint Base Lewis McChord, FYI, is the most requested posting in the entire armed services, even more so, I'm told, than bases in places like Hawaii. I would invite you to come back. I would invite you both to come back out.
We'll look forward to
Chairman,
it. Yes, Mr. Fiskowski.
I just interject, thank you for thanking the committee. It doesn't always happen, but it was the right thing to do, so it was the easy thing to do. I would agree with you on the need of infrastructure. We had a Naval Reserve Center in Gary, Indiana, on the largest body of fresh water on the planet Earth. That Naval Reserve base closed because the Navy could get very little equipment under the bridge on Lake Street in Gary, Indiana. And ultimately, that facility was closed because of infrastructure within the city itself. So appreciate your concern, and we'll do our best. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heck. And may I thank the members of the committee, Mr. Graves, for being here, Judge Carter, Mr. Womack, Ms. Capter, and Mr. Ruppersberger. People often ask why we have this opportunity, and actually it gives people an opportunity to sort of lay down some of the issues confronting either their military base or their support for a local or national program. It's an opportunity for people to vent and advocate, and so we're pleased to provide this. It does surprise me, although this may instigate something for next year, that how few people take advantage of this rather public opportunity to demonstrate their support for a particular military platform or for their military base. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to listen and learn. So really appreciate your taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. Pete and I would definitely be here, but to have you here, we're blessed.
I appreciate the members' attendance as well, and would point out additionally that the idea of holding a members-only hearing, which was a matter of course many years ago, was a very good one from an institutional standpoint as well. To allow members, particularly those who have not served in the institution for a long period of time, a knowledge of how we interact with them, and the fact is they can have input into the appropriations process. Too often it has been, I think, observed as an insular process. That's certainly not the case with the Defense Subcommittee. But do appreciate the great attendance today, because that's not the norm usually.
Ms. Capter, you got to use your microphone if you want to be on the record here.
This is not a terribly serious comment, but notice which end of the aisle is here. This part of the bench.
Well, we know your tenure in Congress has been distinguished and for many years. I'd just like to point out, we did try earlier this year, even though it wasn't in the public arena, that many of us had an opportunity to meet with, I think, the 13 or 14 new members of Congress that came in, both Republicans and Democrats, who served in the military, and sort of hear what they had on their minds. For those of you who had the chance to find time in their schedule, it was most interesting to hear, including one of our members who's a member of the Special Forces, just to get their take on their view of our defense posture and some of the things that the Department of Defense ought to be doing. It's a very interesting perspective, a very valuable perspective. So I guess we're going to take a short recess until our next member comes.
Mr. Chairman,
Jump in,
I think
Judge.
the appropriations process is the most misunderstood process in the entire Congress. I think that when you talk to people about appropriations, members of Congress, it's amazing how little they know about how this works. I don't know what we do to fix that, but and when I was on the leadership, it was just a dazzling vacancy in the understanding of the appropriations process. I don't know how we fix that, but
Mark's going to fix it.
There
'cause I'm
might
gonna
be
give
an
him the microphone.
explanation. There might be an explanation for some of that. Just calculate how many years in Congress half of Congress has been here. That's true. Okay, or more than half, and how much regular order have they seen in that short period of time? Zero. Zero. So when you're living by CRs, you don't really, I mean, they think this is, that CRs are the norm. That's all they ever knew. So that's, I think you're absolutely right, and I've looked for reasons to try to figure out how do we fix that, and the only way you're going to fix that is to get back to regular order.
And it's interesting, I guess I could say this into the record, we look after the needs of all members of Congress, regardless of political persuasion, and we look after members of the committee, and we are hugely accommodating. But this is another opportunity for people to sort of come forward and front and center to be an advocate for their congressional district. Congressman Jeff Miller, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We warmed up the room in the brief absence we had between you and the last witness, but we're very pleased to have you here.
Thank you very much, members. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to testify about a critical issue to our national security, and in this case, critical to the preventative care for our sailors and our airmen. The Navy's basic research on human resilience and performance in high altitude and undersea environments is of vital importance. To enable our continued supremacy of our U.S. forces in the 21st century and to prevent serious illness in later years identified to be caused by prolonged work in the related domains of aviation and diving, it's critical that the Navy's research into the effects of extended exposure to extreme pressure environments is fully funded. In the Navy budget, under the Warfighter Sustainment Program element, the Office of Naval Research's Medical Technologies Program highlights this research as a requirement in support of such mission areas. Unfortunately, funding for this program is insufficient and does not utilize DoD's premier aeromedical environmental health research facility, which is the Naval Medical Research Unit in Dayton, Ohio. Recent research has shown that the low air pressure under which high-altitude pilots work and the resulting high concentrations of oxygen that they breathe leads to decompression sickness, including a type known as neurologic decompression sickness. The research cites such symptoms in pilots and divers as temporary and permanent cognitive decline, slowed through process, and unresponsiveness beyond those due to the natural aging process. Of grave concern to me is that the effects of these illnesses are not too different from what researchers are now finding in traumatic brain injury victims. Our military needs to fund more basic research into the causes and methods of preventing these illnesses in our pilots, deep-sea sailors, and special operators that are exposed to prolonged periods of extreme pressure conditions. There is a promising side to this issue. In 2005, the Defense Base Closure and Realignment Commission directed the establishment of the Naval Medical Research Unit in Dayton, Ohio, and its Joint Center of Excellence for Aeromedical Research at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Since that time, DoD has spent more than $40 million to develop a world-class research facility supported by a collection of state-of-the-art equipment found at no other location around the world. This unique assortment of capabilities enables this facility to transition validated knowledge and effective technologies to the warfighter that will mitigate and prevent the effects of high altitude and undersea environments. However, since the creation of this incredible facility, the Navy has been unable to fund critical research that would capitalize on DoD's investment and to maximize research into established Navy and Air Force requirements. I think you'll agree that funding the efficient utilization of this facility in support of established Air Force and Navy requirements is good for our sailors, our airmen, our veterans, and of course, the taxpayers of this country. As you begin your work on the fiscal year 2016 Defense Appropriation Bill, I respectfully request that you provide an additional $8.9 million for Warfighter Sustainment Medical Technologies Program in the Navy budget. All monies placed on contract will be done so through a robust competition and will increase utilization of research facilities by addressing requirements currently established in the FY16 President's budget. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, the ranking member, Mr. Visklosky, for having this hearing, and I urge you to, and the members of the subcommittee, to look closely at this issue during your discussions. I appreciate the chance to visit with you this morning, and I would be willing to answer any questions in the future should they arise.
Mr. Miller, thank you very much for being with us today. This is a huge issue. This is way beyond what we call the normal stress. What our pilots and divers go through is a remarkable neurological and probably chemical reaction as they go through a variety of different degrees of elevation or submersion. And this is, I think, your being here as a strong advocate for this is sort of a wake-up call, and it's been highly educative to me, let me put it that way. And I think this is something that we should be taking a close look at. I did mention before you came in, we did have the Surgeon Generals of the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy come in yesterday for 2.5 hours for testimony, and I sort of wish that we'd had this as a question for Admiral Nathan and General Travis. But it's something that you've raised for our attention, and I think we're highly appreciative of your doing that. Ms. Capter, I did hear the word Ohio, too.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to assure the Congressman that coming from Ohio and being one of the advocates for Right Pat and the Human Performance Program, thank you for coming today. Thank you for coming before our subcommittee and expressing in very clear terms why this research is so very important. And finally, after so many decades, we are paying attention to the impacts of this kind of heroism, really, on human health, both short-term and long-term. And all I can say, I kept thinking as I was listening to you in my single flight on an F-16, the pressure and what happens to the body. I frankly, I couldn't do that job. The average citizen has no idea of the physical impacts that some of these missions require of the individual. And so thank you so very much for taking the time to come before us today and advocate for our airmen and our sailors. Thank you.
O-H-I-O.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Pleased to welcome Congressman Bradley Byrne from Alabama. Thanks for being with us. I guess we're sort of doing this in order of arrival, even though we gave you a specific time. Welcome. Thanks very much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Visclosky, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. It's my pleasure to appear before you today to testify on two issues important to our national security, the Littoral Combat Ship Program and the Joint High-Speed Vessel Program. Since I appeared before this group last year, I've had the pleasure as a member of the Armed Services Committee to actually be on both of these vessels, not during construction, but as they've actually been deployed. So I'm not just speaking from somebody that's been on them as they've been under construction. I've actually been on them and talked to the people that are actually on those ships, manning those ships, and the people in the Navy that are so important to that program. The LCS is an essential component of our fleet, and it's critical if the Navy is to support the Pentagon's pivot to the Asia-Pacific region, because these are shallow draft vessels. They can get to places that they need to get to in that very important part of the world. Despite what you may have heard, the LCS program is currently realizing substantial efficiencies and savings. Production is stable and costs have been reduced significantly. The LCS is easily the most affordable surface vessel in our fleet today. But the LCS is not just affordable, it is also highly capable. Some of the LCS's loudest critics contend that the Navy has not effectively laid out its plans for the vessels. They have questions about the ship's survivability and lethality. These are important questions, but the Navy already has many of the answers. And although the survivability testing for the vessel will not officially wrap up until 2018, the Navy already understands how survivable and lethal the LCS is in different environments. In fact, the Navy's Small Surface Combatant Task Force recently studied how the current LCS operates in certain environments and how additional capabilities would enhance its ability to operate in these areas. Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus described this study as exhaustive. And upon its completion, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel agreed with the results. Secretary Hagel authorized the Navy to transition the LCS into a frigate, validating the need to build up the program from 32 ships to 52 ships. Now, the first 32 of these ships will be needed to complete the mine countermeasures mission, which is vitally important to operations in the 5th Fleet and the 7th Fleet areas of responsibility. The remaining 20 frigates will be designed to carry out anti-service and anti-sub missions. These ships remain essential to the Navy's ability to project power and provide greater interoperability with our allies. And there are a number of our allies who are looking at these vessels for themselves because they work so well. Last month, in testimony before the Armed Services Committee that I serve on, Secretary Mavis said, quote, "Any change to the production rate of 3 LCSs per year will significantly impact the transition to the frigate," close quote. This is an obvious but frightening observation. It's become abundantly clear that delaying the production of the LCS would significantly reduce the size of our fleet and damage America's national security. In turn, this would force the Navy to cover the same geographic area with significantly fewer assets. The LCS is the rare military program that has seen costs decrease over time. The costs in this program have gone down, not up. The LCS has adhered to stringent contractual and budgetary constraints and is locked into fixed-price contracts at a congressionally mandated cost cap. The LCS ships being built today are being built at an average of $350 million per hull, well under the cost cap. Any further reductions would lead to cost increases and, more importantly, put the frigate program at significant cost and schedule risk. Reductions would also greatly impact the shipyards in Alabama, my district, and in Wisconsin, and the broader shipbuilding industrial base. Because of these considerations, I asked the subcommittee to support the Navy's request and provide the funds necessary to procure 3 littoral combat ships in this year's budget. Next, I'd like to share my support for the Joint High-Speed Vessel, or the JHSV. The JHSV is a shallow draft, high-speed catamaran used for the intra-theater support of personnel, equipment, and supplies. And I've talked to the Marine Corps extensively about the Joint High-Speed Vessel. It is a very important vessel for them. It's a low-cost vessel that meets a lot of their needs. It's the only Navy asset that combines high payload capacity with high speed, providing combatant commanders with a unique capability. In automotive terms, the vessel has been compared to a pickup truck. It's able to support a wide range of missions for all the services. The JHSV has demonstrated the ability to transport military forces, as well as humanitarian relief, personnel, and material. Since delivery of the initial vessel, these ships have supported a wide range of operations around the globe, including assisting in recovery operations after the Indian earthquake and the tsunami in 2004 and the Japanese earthquake and tsunami in 2011. As we meet, the USNS Spearhead is completing her 2nd deployment in the 6th Fleet area of responsibility to support operations in EUCOM and AFRICOM. She's scheduled to make her 2nd deployment to SOUTHCOM later this year. Clearly, this vessel is effectively filling a critical gap. The Department of Defense places a premium on the ability of U.S. military forces to deploy quickly to a full spectrum of engagements. In addition, the Department values the ability of U.S. forces to debark and embark in a wide range of port environments, from modern to, in some cases, austere. The Joint High-Speed Vessel has demonstrated the ability to effectively support these needs. The Joint High-Speed Vessel is currently in serial production with a stable and highly trained workforce. We're benefiting from the efficiencies gained through the construction of the initial 6 vessels. In order to ensure the capability to build these ships and maintain the affordable price, we need to keep the production line open. Unfortunately, without further procurement in FY16, this line will close. Like the LCS, the Joint High-Speed Vessel program provides the Navy with a very affordable and capable ship. At roughly $180 million per ship, I know this sounds like a lot of money, but a DDG costs $1.6 billion. So at $180 million per ship, the Joint High-Speed Vessel is a fraction of what other shipbuildings cost. The program has clearly matured in what can only be considered efficient serial production. We shouldn't let that go to waste. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on these 2 very valuable ships before the subcommittee, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Byrne, thank you very much for your testimony. The committee welcomes it and your strong advocacy for the littoral combat ship. As we have the smallest Navy in our history, we need every ship. It has amazing capabilities, and we obviously on this committee recognize your good work on the Armed Services Committee and the need for more rather than less, just because of tyranny of distance, as you mentioned. to the Pacific, and also your advocacy for the joint high-speed vessel, which is a Navy-Marine combination platform, which is also very badly needed. So we'll do our level best to be of support of both of these programs, understanding that we live within some restrictions of the Budget Control Act.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
And I certainly want to do my part to help with that as well.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Mr.
You
Visconti.
just mentioned that General Rodriguez, when he was testifying before us, suggested that there's a significant need, and you mentioned AFRICOM for the joint vessel. Thank you for your testimony, because we do have a number of members here who would point out that besides the water, we do have coffee available. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Pleased to recognize Congressman Hank Johnson from Georgia. Welcome. Welcome back. You were here last year.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Thank you for having me. Members of the subcommittee, chairman, ranking member, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of the historically black colleges and universities and minority serving institution program, the HBCU MI program. This program funds important Department of Defense research at HBCUs and MSIs around the country and is critical to our long-term national security. This program provides valuable opportunities for students at these institutions to gain exposure to science, technology, engineering, and math research at DoD labs. It also helps to fill the void in our STEM workforce by creating a pipeline of talented researchers in cybersecurity, linguistics, and data modeling and analysis. Mr. Chairman, HBCUs represent 3% of all 2- and 4-year colleges, but generate 25% of STEM bachelor degrees awarded to African Americans. But sadly, despite HBCU's strong track record of success, the federal government has cut STEM funding at these institutions in recent years. Last year, this committee recognized the contributions of HBCUs to our STEM workforce and our economy and stood strong in the face of attempts to cut funding for the HBCU MI program. I urge the committee to do so again this year as the fiscal year 16 DoD budget comes up for debate before the committee, and to fully fund the HBCU MI program at $40 million. These funds will go a long way towards training students for futures in STEM, work-study programs, scholarships, and academic support initiatives for students of color. The HBCU MI program already has strong ties with the Naval Air Force Warfare Center and several centers of battlefield capability enhancements. These partnerships have accelerated defense technology research and helped our armed forces solve complex technological challenges. HBCU MI programs are critical to this program is critical to the cultivating of STEM talent necessary to meet our growing technological needs, and this valuable program is helping America meet the global defense challenges that face us. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to express my support for this program. I respectfully urge the committee to reiterate its support for this program by fully funding it at $40 million, and with that, I will yield back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for being here once again, and I think the support for this program has been bipartisan each and every year for the many years I've served on this committee, and we know it's a good investment. I think members of Congress have been supportive of it, and we appreciate your being here as a strong advocate. We're not going to get anywhere in our society without STEM education, and that needs to be in the hands of everybody. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pleased to recognize another one of our colleagues who serves in the Armed Services Committee, Congressman Paul Cook from California. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Visconti, members of the subcommittee, once again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today about an opportunity to improve Marine Corps tactical intelligence and support combat operations. The Marine Corps Director of Intelligence published a document last September called the Marine Corps Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance Enterprise plan for 2015 to 2020. This is a roadmap for improving the quality and timeliness of intelligence past the Marine units conducting combat operations. This plan addresses the intelligence functions across all echelons of the Marine Corps, the intelligence community, and the Joint Force. It implements the principles of Expeditionary Force 21, the Marine Corps capstone concept for America's force and readiness. And to quote the document, it's all about providing the right intelligence at the right place at the right time. We are facing emerging threats and existing threats modernizing at an unprecedented rate. Our enemy's ability to adapt to American capabilities requires a new American commitment to continue to lead technological development. We use this advantage to outfight, outthink our enemies, but we must also learn how to understand how to use this information that it provides. Full integration of intelligence will equal battlefield success. Integration of information is a high priority for the Marine Corps. It reduces the production timeline, produces greater understanding of the battle space, and supports interoperability by using open standards. Providing these smart maps, it allows the unit commanders and combatants to better understand intelligence data. The Marine Corps requested $13.2 million for the USMC Intelligence/Electronic Warfare Program fiscal year 2016, a 7% decrease compared to fiscal year 2015. Within that amount, $1.8 million is for intelligence analyst system support, which integrate these new tools into the intelligence analysis system family of programs. I don't think that the FY16 budget provides the Marine Corps adequate resources to implement this vision. I recognize the subcommittee has a very, very difficult task in front of it. As you craft your FY16 bill, I am urging you to closely examine whether the Marine Corps intelligence community has sufficient resources to lead the way in the warfighting intelligence process. I just want to add a couple of small comments. I think last year when I was here, I told you that intelligence and what you learn before you go into battle is something that is personally important to me. I think I used the phrase that one time I was the most dangerous weapon in the world as second lieutenant with a map and a compass. Well, the world has changed, but there are always a lot of emerging threats. You know, Nimitz had a big advantage at Midway. You look at Enigma and Ultra, how it basically won the war for the Allies through the help of the British code breakers. And some of these things are going to change the battlefield. And if you look at the Army and you look at the Marine Corps and you look at the number of casualties that they've had in the last 50 years, you know, a lot of it has been on these battlefields. Some of it has been from such archaic weapons as RPGs, still explosive devices that I was encountering in Vietnam in 1967 and 68. This is something I think for all unit commanders, battle commanders, and all troops that go in harm's way, this is a program that I hope you will look very carefully at. And I beg you, I thank you for your indulgence.
We'll do our best. First of all, thank you for your distinguished military service. And may I say the committee has discussed, and there's obviously strong bipartisan support, more investments with ISR. You know, intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance. I mean, that's really where we need to put some more money. And we know, of course, I'll be solicitous. The Marines are the tip of the spear, and when there's a problem around the world, you guys and gals are out there doing it. So this is something we'll take a very close look at, see if we can do a little better than we have in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Mr. Carter from Georgia, welcome. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate y'all having me here today, and it's Great opportunity to share with you my concerns and priorities for the military installations within Georgia's 1st Congressional District. It's an honor to represent a district which houses four major military installations, every branch of the military, and thousands of veterans who have served our country so honorably. With this unique military footprint, the district's defense elements are important not just to our state and region, but also to our nation and America's interest around the world. The 1st District is the proud home of Fort Stewart and Hunter Army Airfield. As the largest Army installation east of the Mississippi River and home to the Rock of the Marne, the 3rd Infantry Division, Fort Stewart, has a long and storied past as well as a vibrant role in today's national defense missions. Its level of significance and contributions continues to be a point of pride for the district, from spearheading of the advance into Baghdad during Operation Iraqi Freedom to the deployment of soldiers to West Africa to help contain the Ebola outbreak. Today, as I speak, the 3rd ID is deployed to Afghanistan and Eastern Europe. With the Army's planned manpower drawdowns, the maintenance of effective troop levels and mission sets at Fort Stewart has become a very concerning issue. I've heard discussions about reducing the total number of Army brigade combat teams nationwide and additional manpower cuts, which could affect the 3rd ID by the reduction of 1 or even 2 BCTs. Such reductions would be a severe blow to the ability of the 3rd ID, Fort Stewart, and Hunter to provide their extraordinary capability to our national defense. Fort Stewart and Hunter are uniquely equipped and strategically located to deliver a devastating blow to our adversaries worldwide. And let me touch on that very quickly. As you know, Fort Stewart and Hunter are located in the Savannah area, in the Coastal Empire area, near the Georgia ports, near the Savannah port. That gives them quick access to be deployed, and that's very important and something that we're very proud of and we view as a great asset, not only to Hunter and Fort Stewart, but to our nation as a whole. It has vast training areas, modern facilities, and an extraordinary network of intermodal deployment options through nearby ports and on base and nearby airports. For those reasons and more, I'm requesting that the Army broaden its evaluation of Fort Stewart and Hunter with regard to BCT reductions. That should include factors such as cost efficiencies of operations and speed of deployment. Speed of deployment, what I was just talking about by being that close to a major port like the Savannah port. The regional training capabilities with other installations and community support. The regional capabilities and multi-service resources include another unique resource of national significance located in the 1st District, the Townsend Bombing Range. The Townsend Bombing Range is itself owned by the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort and operated by the Georgia Air National Guard. Townsend is integral not just to the state of Georgia, but also to the Air Force, Navy, Army, Air National Guard, and Marine Corps elements that use it. Recently, I've learned that the Air National Guard headquarters has signed over the operational control of the Townsend Bombing Range to the USMC because of the apparent ANG inability to devote the necessary personnel resources for the expansion of the range. While we're excited that the range is expanding to accommodate 5th-generation fighters like the F-35s, there are concerns about access to the range by other services and the provisions of adequate resources to address community concerns. 2 counties in my district, Long and McIntosh, are in discussion with the Marine Corps about compensation for losses to their tax digests, and I'm working with the Marine Corps to secure clarification on a number of related questions and issues. Nearby Fort Stewart, my district proudly includes the Kings Bay Naval Submarine Base, located in St. Mary's, Georgia. Kings Bay is the home port for the Atlantic Ballistic Missile Submarine Fleet. The fleet of submarines located at Kings Bay plays an indispensable role in our nation's security as an element of the nation's nuclear triad. It is currently home to 8 Ohio-class submarines, 6 of which are ballistic missile submarines, and 2 of which have been converted to guided missile submarines. While these submarines fulfill a critical role in nuclear deterrence and readiness, they will soon be reaching the end of their expected timeline, and a replacement will be needed. The last guided missile submarine is expected to be retired in 2028, leaving the Navy with a 60% reduction in its undersea strike capacity. Again, the last guided missile submarine is expected to be retired in 2028, leaving the Navy with a 60% reduction in its undersea strike capacity. The first Ohio-class replacement submarine was originally scheduled to be procured in fiscal year 2019, but necessary deferments by the Navy has pushed back that timeline. This means that there may be a gap in the retirement of the Ohio-class boats and the procurement and production of its replacement class of boats. Because of this, I submitted a programmatic request in support of the Department of Defense's budget line of $1.391 billion for the Ohio replacement development in accordance with the President's budget. The Virginia-class fast attack submarine is another major program with a critical role in defense of our nation and our Navy. With the Ohio-class replacements on the horizon, Virginia-class submarines will continue to fulfill a larger role in the submarine fleet, especially with their life expectancy projected to reach as far as 2070. The Virginia payload module is a cost-effective way to preserve our undersea strike capacity by adding expanded capabilities and armaments to the Virginia-class submarine fleet. With the rise in deployment and procurement of anti-access and aerial denial systems, undersea strikes will, through necessity, assume a more dominant role in the future conflicts. It is through an expansion program like the Virginia Payload Module.
Mr. Carter, we are highly supportive of and recognize Georgia's incredible role for the Army, the Navy, and the Marines. I don't think there are many states could match the capabilities of your warfighters who do some remarkable things on behalf of our country. I sort of want to we want to make sure that we give all of our colleagues an opportunity to speak, but I want to assure you we are focused on the issue of end strength. We know your pride in your congressional district, the incredible work at Fort Stewart, Hunter, Kings Bay. I've been there. They do some incredible. We're also focused on the submarine, the next generation of Ohio class. You should know our committee has made that commitment in terms of technology. I think we're headed in the right direction, and with your advocacy, we'll get across the finish line.
I apologize for taking so much time, but when you got 4 military institutions in your district, it's all important. And I didn't get to mention the most important one, and I apologize.
Go right ahead. Just briefly.
Rudy Air Force Base, located in Lowndes County, also in my district, home of the A-10s. I just have to mention to you how important that is and how important the A-10s are to our national security. And I just have to get that in, and I apologize.
You did it. There's no reason to apologize.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you very much.
You're a strong advocate. Your constituents can be proud of the good work you do on behalf of our country.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Mr. Roftus from Pennsylvania, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Frelinghuysen, Ranking Member Visklosky, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for holding this hearing today and for receiving my testimony for the fiscal year 2016 Defense Authorization Bill. This morning I'd like to focus my remarks on the Army's Aviation Restructuring Initiative. As you know, this policy will result in the transfer of the National Guard Apache helicopters to the active component. Army officials have stated that this restructuring is necessary to generate savings and make the remaining aviation fleet more affordable. I have long opposed this plan, and for the second year in a row asked, Mr. Chairman, savings at what cost? Since September 11, 2001, the National Guard has repeatedly risen to the occasion. They have answered the call and fought bravely in Iraq and Afghanistan, and at the height of these wars, nearly 50% of the Army's total force was a mix of reservists and members of the National Guard. The Pennsylvania National Guard alone contributed more than 42,000 individual deployments. They have fought side by side with the active component, all while continuing to achieve their important mission here at home. ARI will have devastating impacts on all the National Guard has achieved. By stripping the National Guard of its Apache helicopters, the Army is ensuring that the National Guard will be less combat ready and less able to provide operational depth. It will also deprive our nation of an operational reserve for these aircraft, which is essential to the retention and management of talented air crews. This represents a fundamental shift in the nature and role of the National Guard. It runs counter to the wisdom and preference of many members of Congress and their constituents. This issue is important in Pennsylvania and to the 1st 104th Attack Reconnaissance Battalion in Johnstown. These highly trained airmen and crew played an invaluable aerial support role in Afghanistan, where they flew their Apache helicopters and fought alongside the active component. The Army now proposes to replace these Apaches with a smaller number of Blackhawks. This reduction will deprive the National Guard of both highly trained personnel and equipment. It will result in the National Guard being less effective, less combat capable, and less able to heed the call to defend this nation, both at home and abroad. I offered similar criticism of ARI last year and joined my colleagues in urging for the creation of the National Commission on the Future of the Army. I also advocated that there should be no transfers or divestment of any Army aircraft, including Apaches, until after the Commission has had sufficient opportunity to examine ARI. I applauded the House Armed Services Committee for including those important provisions in the FY15 National Defense Authorization Act, but I was disappointed to see that at the insistence of the Senate, the legislation also contained a glaring exception that allows the Army to transfer up to 48 Apaches prior to the Commission releasing its finding and recommendations. The Commission was established to offer a deliberate approach to addressing force structures like ARI. So how does it make any sense to permit the Army to transfer these Apaches before the Commission has done its work? The answer is simple: it doesn't. And we need to put a stop to this before it's too late. Even National Guard Bureau Chief General Frank Grass admits that once these transfers begin, it will be all but impossible to reverse them. For that reason, I respectfully request that this committee include a simple provision in this year's Defense Appropriations Bill that prohibits funding to transfer any Apaches until the end of fiscal year 2016. This will provide sufficient time for the Commission to release its report, for the Army and the National Guard to respond, and for Congress to make a reasoned and well-informed decision. I recognize that this committee will be forced to make many difficult decisions over the next few months, but this isn't one of them. Providing a temporary freeze on the transfer of Apaches just makes sense and will ensure that irreparable harm is not done to our National Guard without due deliberation. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Mr. Rothfuss, thank you very much for your strong advocacy. I can assure you that inside this room, in a very public manner, there are many members, including yours truly, that are very concerned about this whole transformation and where the Army is going in terms of its aviation goals. And we have a sharp debate, and I think most of us are very highly supportive in recognizing the incredible work of the National Guards throughout all 50 states. And so it is a work in progress. We have slowed down a lot of what the big Army has wanted to do, and we will continue to focus on this issue with a lot of the things that you've continued to bring to our attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from Michigan, thank you very much for being with us. Thanks for your patience.
Good morning. I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for having me here today. I want to thank all the members for allowing me the opportunity to testify. I was still a teenager when we pulled out of Vietnam, yet I remember the impact it had on our country and how it changed our thoughts on war and diplomacy. The role of women in this country was changing as well. Many of us only saw images on TV as our role models of housewives. Now, more than 200,000 women are in active duty military, including about 70 generals and admirals. Yet, among the top ranks, only 7% of the 976 generals and admirals are women. Among the enlisted, 60% of women are still in either the medical or administrative specialties. Another 30% are in supply units as part of the communications staff. The numbers aren't much different for the female officers. To promote gender equality, we have to ensure that our military training reflect the true nature of combat, rather than outdated notions of what it means to be a good soldier. This will require more funding. I am pleased that the National Defense Authorization Act removes several barriers to women serving and those planning to serve, including more gender-neutral occupational standards that will allow almost all military positions and units to be open to women, requirements that combat equipment for women are properly designed and fitted and meet requirement standards for wear, a review by the Comptroller General to review recruitment efforts toward women and officers. Thankfully, the presumption of innocence by those good military character, most likely innocent, and sexual assault prosecutions were removed as well. I hope that these important aspects of the NDAA are fully funded and monitored by this subcommittee and by the House Armed Services Committee. While issues such as changes in combat equipment and design take time, I respectfully request that a report on timing. Cyber operations are growing and become a very important part of each of the services. Cybersecurity is also a gender-neutral occupation, allowing both men and women to serve our country and protect our nation as equals. We need to see this growing area of concern addressed through effective human resourcing and adequate funding for advanced technology. I am pleased that this committee supports funding the equality programs for girls in Afghanistan, but we must push for that same ideal here. We must lead in demonstrating that gender equality is not limited to private industry in foreign countries, but in our military too. Mr. Chairman, I'm aware of how difficult your job is in these tough fiscal times, and I'm aware that you serve to fund a part of our nation that is critical to the very safety and well-being of Americans. As you consider what to provide funding for and what to decrease, I respectfully ask that you maintain full funding provisions that address changes to combat equipment, support for sexual assault victims, female outreach and recruitment programs, gender occupation policy reviews, and program reviews. I also ask that you request a report from the services on the costs and timing of what I feel is critical equipment changes for women. Let us demonstrate with our words and our dollars that the funding for equality should happen at home just as it does abroad. I really do appreciate being able to bring this to you today, being excited about being one of the 100 women serving in this Congress this year, and proud to be a Congresswoman for the United States of America. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, you
Ms.
have
Lawrence.
good reason to be proud, and may I say that all members of the committee may not be here, but Mr. Voskowski and I, representing them, along with Mr. Ruppersberger, feel that we are absolutely committed to removing barriers to any position in the military for women. You should be aware that we feel very strongly about that. The committee has made a substantial investment, if we need to do it, relative to the inexcusable issue of sexual assault. We're not going to stand for it. We've been quite strong, very strong in that regard. Doesn't matter what the service is, what the circumstances are. And in terms of equipment, we obviously need to recognize that the equipment needs to be adjusted and done in a way that allows more women to serve in more positions. And I agree with you. I think we need to have a review as to who's in leadership and to make sure that we have a fair representation. Because certainly given our commitment over the last couple of years to 2 wars, women have stood with men in every way, both domestically here at military installations, but in a lot of different rough, horrible environments abroad. And so I just want to assure you that our committee is committed to those types of goals that you advocate for and have advocated so well for today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and your patience, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the subcommittee. I first want to extend my appreciation for the work that you do. As a proud mother of a son who is a West Point graduate and does serve in the United States Army in the 101st Airborne, he received his captain's bars on April 30th, and I will be there on that very proud, wonderful day. And I represent thousands of constituents in Missouri's 2nd Congressional District that wear the uniform. I know firsthand the importance of the subcommittee's work for our national security. The past 2 years, I've become very familiar with the Navy's tactical aviation capabilities. Last year, this subcommittee responded to the Navy's requirement for more electronic attack capabilities by providing 15 EA-18G Growlers in the fiscal year 2015 budget. Those aircraft will provide a warfighting capability that no adversary can match. Growlers will keep our Navy equipped to overcome enemies today and in the future in all threat environments. For that, I would like to say thank you. Today, I'm here to support adding FA-18 aircraft to the fiscal year 2016 budget. As you know, the Navy submitted an unfunded requirement for 12 FA-18 F-model aircraft. In testimony, the Chief Naval Operations Admiral Jonathan Grainert stated that the Navy has, and I quote, a Super Hornet shortfall of at least 2 to 3 squadrons, the equivalent of 24 to 36 aircraft. An aging fleet of legacy aircraft, the delayed operational deployment of the F-35 program, and a higher than anticipated utilization of Super Hornets in combat are contributing to this shortfall. To this last point, the Super Hornet is truly the workhorse of naval combat operations against ISIL. It is an absolutely critical in-demand weapon against our enemies. To exacerbate the shortfall challenge, the Navy has lost, sadly, 15 Super Hornets and Hornets over the past 5 years to battle or training losses, aircraft that have not been able to be replaced by the Navy or Congress. The strike fighter shortfall identified in the unfunded requirement request is not a new issue to the Navy, and it is one identified by this subcommittee repeatedly. The HAC-D has been on the leading edge of telling the Navy to address its inventory challenges. We all wish that the President's budget request included additional FA-18 Super Hornets, and we all expect the Navy to address the total extent of the shortfall in subsequent budgets. However, without aircraft in fiscal year 2016, the FA-18 program faces a line closure decision. The FA-18 manufacturing line is the only aircraft production with the ability to build operational strike fighters for the Navy today and AEA aircraft for the entire Department of Defense. Without it, the Navy couldn't address its shortfall, nor could it add Growlers in the future. I would not be in front of you today if funding additional aircraft were not so vital to the warfighting capabilities, sir. Adding aircraft and keeping the FA-18 line alive is the right thing to do to keep our military personnel safe and to keep our country and allies safe. I have provided a copy of a House letter signed by myself and my colleagues requesting additional aircraft. These are members who have stood by the by the subcommittee to support defense appropriations in years past. I have also added a copy of the unfunded requirement highlighting the Navy's request for 12 aircraft. I ask that both of these documents be submitted as a part of my written testimony, Mr.
Consider it done.
In closing, I urge you to add 12 FA-18 aircraft to ensure the Navy can protect our nation now and in decades to come. I look forward to working with you and this subcommittee and supporting the appropriations process as it moves through the House of Representatives. I stand at your service, and thank you for yours.
Well, Ms. Magro, thank you for your testimony, and thank you for your congratulations on your son's promotion and his service to our nation. I can assure you we're working very closely with the Navy. We obviously have some of the oldest aircraft across the broad spectrum of aircraft that we have to deal with, and we'll do our level best to address the issues, because obviously the F-18 has incredible capabilities, and we still need it. Still need its capabilities.
It is the workhorse, sir, and losing 15 in the last 5 years we've taken a real hit. So anything that this subcommittee can do and anything I can do to be supportive through the appropriations process, I'm there to serve.
Mr. Chair, I would simply say the best for last, and also I add my congratulations on your and thank you for your service.
He's a wonderful young man, and we look forward at the end of the month to celebrating him.
Well, congratulations to you. Committee stands adjourned. Appreciate everybody showing up and for their support of this hearing.
That's it.